They say Hollywood is where dreams are manufactured, a place powered by illusion, spectacle, and the non-stop chase for the next big moment, a boulevard famous for concrete stars, and an industry that can feel ice-cold beneath the spotlight. But what happens when you take that polished, world-famous facade and flood it with the warmest, longest, most joyful Christmas tradition on Earth? You get a story that sounds almost unbelievable. Today we're stepping into a fictional legend. The year the Filipino community didn't just celebrate Christmas, they took over Hollywood Boulevard with the unstoppable spirit of Maligayang Pasko. A story of bold vision, cultural pride, and enough adobo to feed an army of curious tourists. But before we roll out the red carpet, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city and country in the comments and let's see how far this holiday energy travels. Like this video and subscribe to Global News Frontier. Now, welcome to Los Angeles. The origins of what locals would later call the Hollywood takeover didn't begin in a flashy boardroom or studio lot. It started in a cramped kitchen in historic Filipino town, inside the apartment of LSE Santos. LSE, a second-generation Filipino-American event planner, had organized her share of celebrations, her biggest being an elaborate debutante ball in Glendale. But this time something deeper stirred inside her. It was early October. The Santa Ana winds blew hot dust through the city. The temperature hovered near 85 degrees. No snow, no chill, just early decorations and rushed commercial Christmas vibes everywhere. LSE felt the ache of nostalgia. She missed the Philippines, the stories her Lola told her, the carols that started in September, the air thick with the scent of roasting lechon and sweet rice cakes. She didn't want another party. She wanted a transplant of spirit. She wanted to bring the loud, chaotic, deeply emotional heart of a Filipino Pasko straight into the most cynical place she knew, Hollywood Boulevard. The idea sounded ridiculous at first. Shutting down Hollywood Boulevard wasn't just difficult, it was nearly impossible. Endless permits, massive insurance demands, powerful business associations that resisted anything unfamiliar. When LSE shared the idea with family and fellow organizers, laughter filled the room. LSE, her cousin Manny joked, waving a pork skewer. You can't just drop a parole on the Walk of Fame. They'll arrest you for blocking Brad Pitt's star. Let's just rent a hall in Carson and be done. But LSE couldn't let it go. She pictured neon lights replaced by the warm glow of spinning parole lanterns, street noise drowned out by full choirs. Hollywood transformed, not by fame, but by faith, food, and family. So she started alone. For weeks, rejection followed rejection. City Hall became her second home. Staffers recognized her by the click of her shoes and the faint smell of pandesal she brought as peace offerings. Her biggest roadblock was Councilman Arthur Pendleton, a man stuck in the past, convinced Hollywood's best days were decades behind it. This isn't a block party, he said flatly. You want to shut down a global landmark. We already have a Christmas parade. Why do we need this? He gestured dismissively at her board filled with glowing star lanterns. That's when LSE realized something crucial. She couldn't win with paperwork alone. She needed momentum, she needed the people. So she changed strategy. LSE mobilized the younger Filipino-American generation. TikTok creators, food vloggers, dancers, singers, nurses, artists. Together, they launched a grassroots digital movement under one hashtag, drawing Hollywood Pasko. What followed felt electric. A surprised tinikling flash mob erupted outside the Dolby Theater, weaving between stunned tourists and costume superheroes. A choir of exhausted nurses sang a soulful rendition of Christmas in Our Hearts beneath the towering lights of the Chinese theater, silencing traffic with harmony alone. The videos exploded online, millions of views overnight. Media outlets started calling. What began as a dream in a small kitchen was now a viral movement. Then came the moment that changed everything. A Grammy-winning American pop star, quietly proud of her Filipino roots, saw the choir video on her feed. She watched, she listened, and she shared it. Her caption was simple, powerful, and impossible to ignore. This is Christmas, this is home. And suddenly, Hollywood was paying attention. I want to be part of this. Let's make it happen, LA. That single endorsement became the battering ram LSE needed. Almost overnight, everything changed. Calls were returned. Emails stopped disappearing into silence. Brands that had once ignored her, major airlines, telecom giants, even a streaming platform hunting for holiday content, were suddenly eager, even desperate, to attach their names to the moment. Armed with viral momentum and serious corporate interest, LSE walked back into Councilman Pendleton's office. The power balance had flipped. She was no longer a persistent organizer with a hopeful idea. She was the face of a cultural wave. And Pendleton knew that blocking it would turn him into tomorrow's headline villain. The meeting was brief. LSE presented a new vision. Bigger, bolder, impossible to ignore. This wouldn't be a simple parade. She proposed a full-scale street festival, food vendors stretching from Highland to Vine, a massive main stage planted directly over the intersection where the Oscars red carpet usually ruled. Pendleton leaned back, sighed the tired sigh of a veteran politician, and signed. "Fine, Miss Santos," he muttered. "You get one night, don't wreck my street." The win was exhilarating and immediately terrifying. The 6 weeks that followed dissolved into a haze of sleepless nights and frantic coordination, fueled by the Filipino spirit of Bayanihan, collective effort in motion. LSE's tiny kitchen was abandoned for a rented warehouse in the valley, now transformed into mission control. The space pulsed with energy. One corner became a parol factory, where volunteers spanning generations, Lolas, parents, teens, carefully glued colored cellophane, cut intricate patterns into capiz shells, and assembled lanterns ranging from handheld stars to enormous rotating structures meant to hang above major intersections. Another section echoed with music and movement. Dance troupes rehearsed routines that fused traditional folk steps with modern hip-hop, the sharp rhythm of bamboo poles clacking late into the night. The air was heavy with the smell of glue, sweat, and an endless supply of lumpia, fuel for a volunteer force running on passion alone. Then there was the food. LSE knew one thing for certain. A Filipino celebration without overwhelming abundance was unthinkable. She contacted every Filipino restaurant, bakery, caterer, and home cook across Southern California. The mission was clear: turn Hollywood Boulevard into the longest Noche Buena feast the world had ever seen. Arguments broke out over who made the best sisig. Vendors battled for prime booth spots near the main stage. Entire planning sessions were consumed by one impossible question: how to move whole roasted Lechon pigs through Los Angeles traffic without catastrophe. They sourced industrial rice cookers by the dozen, secured mountains of charcoal to keep grills blazing through the night. At 3 a.m., LSE found herself calming a frantic baker whose industrial mixer had collapsed mid-production. Thousands of bibinka batters hanging in the balance. Chaos ruled, but somehow it worked, because this wasn't just an event anymore. It was a movement built on shared effort, shared pride, and the belief that something extraordinary was about to happen. Right in the heart of Hollywood, as the date drew near, a restless tension settled over the organizers. Weather apps were refreshed constantly. One unexpected Los Angeles rainstorm could undo everything. Security plans became a growing concern, with LAPD requirements for crowd control consuming a painful portion of the budget. And then there was the pressure from within. The Filipino community is deeply connected and unapologetically vocal. Everyone had an opinion. The performers, the decor, the music, whether the celebration felt truly authentic or dangerously close to being over-commercialized. For LSE, the wait became suffocating. This was no longer just a gathering, it was a statement. A chance to present the warmth, resilience, and joyful spirit of her culture on one of the most visible stages in the world. Failure felt unthinkable, like a public misstep that would echo for years. Or at least that's how it felt in the quiet moments when anxiety crept in. Then the morning arrived, December 16th, the traditional beginning of Simbang Gabi. Dawn broke bright, clear, and surprisingly cool. At exactly 6 a.m., Hollywood Boulevard was officially shut down to traffic. The transformation began instantly. Flatbed trucks rumbled down the street, weighed down with towering sound systems and stage trusses, squeezing past landmarks like Ripley's Believe It or Not. Familiar sidewalk characters, knockoff superheroes and costumed performers, looked on in confusion as waves of volunteers moved in, stringing thousands of glowing parol lanterns between the palm trees lining the boulevard. The usual scent of exhaust and stale beer slowly faded. In its place came the mouth-watering aroma of garlic-fried rice and sizzling pork, as vendors set up directly over the bronze stars bearing names like Marilyn Monroe and Charlie Chaplin. By late afternoon, long before the official opening, the crowds began to form. And it wasn't just the Filipino community. Tourists, locals, and curious onlookers from every background were drawn in by the growing buzz. The Hollywood and Highland metro station poured out thousands of people every few minutes. From inside a production trailer behind the main stage, LSE watched the live camera feeds, her throat tightening. The boulevard was filling faster than anyone expected. Shoulder to shoulder, storefront to storefront, a vast sea of faces waiting. The energy was overwhelming, both exhilarating and terrifying. A low electric hum filled the air, drowning out the familiar sounds of the city. Then dusk arrived. As the California sun slipped below the skyline, painting the sky in fiery orange and deep purple, the moment came. LSE lifted her radio. Lights. In an instant, Hollywood Boulevard went dark. Streetlights cut out, neon dimmed. A collective gasp rolled through the crowd. Then, starting at La Brea and flowing toward Vine, the parols came alive. Thousands of spinning stars burst into color, casting patterns of red, green, and gold across buildings, pavement, and upturned faces. Hollywood's polished commercial shell dissolved, replaced by a warm glow that felt intimate despite the massive scale. It was the heartbeat of the Philippines pulsing through the center of Los Angeles. The sound system crackled, not with a bass drop or fireworks, but with the soft, familiar ring of church bells echoing gently through the night. Then voices rose from above. A vast children's choir, clad in pristine white and standing on elevated risers that appeared to hover over the crowd, began to sing. They didn't open with familiar Western carols. Instead, they chose Ang Pasko, the soul of Filipino Christmas music. As the Tagalog lyrics echoed against the walls of the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel, the atmosphere shifted instantly. Older Filipinos wept openly, carried back to childhood, cool December mornings, quiet streets, and memories of home. For the younger generation, the moment sparked something different but just as powerful. Pride. Seeing their heritage honored with such dignity in a space that rarely made room for them felt historic. With the emotional tone firmly set, the celebration surged forward. The festival erupted into a full-body experience only a Filipino gathering could deliver. The main stage became a non-stop showcase of talent. Traditional dancers in glittering, jewel-toned costumes moved with astonishing precision, balancing candle-lit glasses atop their heads as the crowd watched in awe. They were followed by Filipino-American hip-hop crews who transformed the stage into a display of rhythm, power, and athletic artistry. Then came the surprise that sent the crowd into frenzy. The pop star whose support helped ignite the movement stepped into the spotlight, joined by a legendary singer from Manila. Together, they performed a beloved OPM Christmas classic, collapsing generations and continents into a single song. The crowd sang every lyric. Thousands of voices merged into one thunderous sound of unity. But the magic wasn't confined to the stage. At street level, Hollywood Boulevard had transformed into the largest tiangi, a Christmas market, ever imagined. Smoke from hundreds of charcoal grills drifted overhead, forming a savory haze. Food lines stretched endlessly, yet no one complained. Strangers shared plates of pancit while waiting for skewered barbecue. The air was rich with sweetness, the caramel scent of freshly fried turon, the warm, bready aroma of bibingka baking in clay pots, topped with salted egg and coconut. Tourists who arrived hoping to see celebrity handprints instead found themselves daring each other to try balut. Their reactions filmed by laughing crowds gathered close. When LSE finally stepped out of the production trailer, guided through the masses by security, the reality of it all hit her at once. She watched a Latino family joyfully share an oversized halo. Their smiles stained purple from ubi ice cream. Nearby, Japanese tourists carefully practiced tinikling steps as a patient Lola coached them with laughter. Even a stern-faced LAPD officer couldn't help tapping his foot to the rhythm of a marching band playing a festive medley. The celebration had grown beyond culture, beyond community. This wasn't just Filipinos celebrating. It was Los Angeles in all its chaotic diversity, wrapped in Filipino warmth. The spirit of Maligayang Pasko spread effortlessly, filling a street rarely known for genuine connection. Then came the night's defining moment, the image that would dominate news broadcasts the following day. The parada ng mga parol. The main stage fell silent. The boulevard cleared down the center. A brass band led the way with triumphant holiday marches as hundreds of community groups processed forward, each carrying glowing lanterns of their own design. Towering, intricately engineered parols sponsored by local businesses rotated mechanically, depicting nativity scenes in brilliant light. Beside them were humble, handmade stars held by schoolchildren, softly glowing with battery-powered candles. Most moving of all were the groups representing different regions of the Philippines, each lantern crafted from materials unique to their islands, each design telling a story of home, identity, and belonging. And as the lights moved down Hollywood Boulevard, it became clear. This wasn't just a parade. It was a celebration the city would never forget. It became a river of light flowing across a concrete river of stars, a quiet reclaiming of space rich with symbolism. As the lantern parade reached the crossroads of Hollywood and Highland, the movement slowed, then stopped entirely. A hush swept over the crowd. A single spotlight cut through the darkness, landing at the center of the intersection. There stood a young girl no more than 8 years old, holding one small, simple parol. Nothing elaborate, nothing flashy. Then she sang. Her voice was steady and clear as she began Silent Night in English. Halfway through, without hesitation, she transitioned seamlessly into Tagalog. The moment was pure and unfiltered, so beautiful it disarmed even the most hardened cynics. The street performers stopped hustling. Cameras lowered, conversations faded. For a brief sacred pause, Hollywood wasn't about fame, money, or spectacle. It was about peace, about light, about the universal longing for home and connection during the holidays. The silence broke, not with applause, but with thunder. Fireworks erupted from rooftops surrounding the boulevard, painting the sky in brilliant red, blue, and yellow, the colors of the Philippine flag. Cheers exploded upward as the music roared back to life, louder and faster than before. What followed was joyful chaos. Hollywood Boulevard turned into one massive dance floor. Line dances passed down through generations formed instantly. Long winding conga-style lines snaked between food stalls. Laughter echoed everywhere. The joy was uncontainable, a collective release after years of holding it in. It felt less like an event and more like a 4-hour embrace from an extended family. Somewhere deep in the crowd, Councilman Pendleton appeared. He wasn't smiling. That would have been out of character. But he was holding a barbecue skewer and tapping his foot to the beat. Across the VIP section, LSE caught his eye. He gave her a brief, unmistakable nod. The closest thing he would ever offer as an apology. It was enough. That nod meant they had earned respect. They had proven their culture wasn't peripheral. It was vital. Powerful enough to reshape one of the most famous streets in the world. As midnight approached, no one wanted to leave. Even the police hesitated. The music was allowed to continue for another 30 minutes. When the final anthem played, the crowd didn't scatter. People lingered beneath the glowing parols, hugging strangers, absorbing what they had just lived through. Cleanup crews prepared for a long night, buoyed by the afterglow of celebration. The next morning, Hollywood Boulevard looked like it had survived a joyful storm. Street sweepers cleared mountains of debris, yet somehow the street felt cleaner, lighter. A faint scent of roasted pork and caramelized sugar still lingered. The lanterns were gone, but the wires remained overhead, subtle proof that something extraordinary had happened. The news cycle was flooded with images from the night, and for those who were there, one truth remained clear. The light had faded, but its impact hadn't. Social media quickly flooded with clips of dancing crowds and glowing lanterns. Within hours, Hollywood Pasko was being spoken of as an instant Los Angeles legend. For the Filipino community, the impact ran far deeper than viral videos. In the weeks that followed, something shifted in neighborhoods like historic Filipino Town and Carson. There was a renewed confidence, a quiet but unmistakable pride that came from finally being seen on a global stage. Filipino-owned restaurants and bakeries saw new faces daily. Customers from outside the community lined up to taste dishes they'd glimpsed on the news or scrolled past online. In one night, curiosity had been sparked in a way decades of quiet presence never had. It was validation. Proof that their traditions weren't something to keep tucked away at home, but something worth celebrating boldly, out loud, under the brightest lights in the city. LSE Santos became a modest local celebrity. She appeared on morning shows, podcasts, and newspaper features, praised as the visionary who brought heart back to Hollywood. She accepted the attention graciously, always redirecting praise to the volunteers and community members who made it possible. Privately, she felt something deeper than pride. She felt peace. She had accomplished what she set out to do, not just for herself, but for an entire city longing for connection. She had shown that the spirit of Bayanihan could overcome red tape, doubt, and disbelief. The ripple effects didn't stop there. Other immigrant communities took notice. If Hollywood Boulevard could belong to Filipinos for one night, why not others? Soon, City Hall began receiving proposals. Korean harvest festivals, Ethiopian Timkat celebrations, Armenian cultural showcases. Hollywood Pasko had opened a door. It proved that the iconic street wasn't owned solely by the movie industry. It belonged to the people of Los Angeles in all their diversity. Culture, it turned out, was a bigger draw than celebrity. Yet the most lasting impact wasn't economic or political. It was emotional. For years afterward, when December arrived, Angelenos remembered that night. The warmth of lantern light against cold concrete, the taste of uba, the sound of thousands of voices singing together in Tagalog. Hollywood Pasko had infused the city's holiday season with something rare, genuine soul. A reminder that the best celebrations aren't about expensive gifts or flawless decor, but about community, connection, and an open-hearted welcome. In the end, the story of Filipinos taking over Hollywood Boulevard wasn't about conquest. It was about an embrace. A community loved its traditions so fiercely that it shared them on the grandest scale imaginable. A street known for illusion was filled with authenticity. A boulevard dedicated to individual stars was illuminated by lanterns representing a collective spirit. The morning after, LSE stood quietly at the corner of Hollywood and Highland as traffic returned to normal. A tourist family passed by, the father wearing a t-shirt printed with a faded parol, merchandise from the night before. The physical signs were gone, but the energy remained. She smiled, already knowing next year would be bigger. Maybe not just the boulevard, maybe the hills all the way up to the sign. Hollywood Pasko revealed something essential about the immigrant experience in America. You don't have to abandon your culture to belong. You can bring it with you. Plant it in unfamiliar ground, nurture it, and watch it bloom so brightly the world has no choice but to notice. That night, Filipinos didn't just celebrate Christmas. They claimed their place in the American story. And so the legend of the Maligayang Pasko takeover lived on, passed from those who witnessed it to those who wished they had. A cornerstone of Los Angeles folklore, a testament to what happens when a community dares to dream boldly and love generously. Because in Tinseltown, the brightest stars aren't always made of terrazzo and brass. Sometimes they're made of capiz shells, bamboo, and the unbreakable Filipino spirit. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more unforgettable stories from around the world.